I'm going to be talking about God's confidence in us tonight. So I am going to be going to the most encouraging book in the whole Bible. I'm going to Job. Get ready to be encouraged, y'all. And I'm like, okay, Lord, why are you showing me Job? Like, I'm staying away from that one. I was running today, okay? I was running. I'm like, what does this mean? Are you bringing all this? But he started showing me that it was God's confidence in Job that set this whole thing in order in the first place. So when I looked at it in that perspective, it cushioned the blow. It cushioned it. So I'm going to start in verse 1. Job chapter 1, verse 1. There was a man in the land of Uz whose name was Job, and that man was blameless and upright, and one who feared God and shunned evil. So right off the bat, it's describing Job, who he was. He was a righteous man. Everybody knew him, right? Everybody knew of who he was, the things he had, that he was a man of God who feared God. That was his reputation. And it's crazy because the whole book of Job is the object of God's testing. So here is a man of God. But as we go on a little bit in his story, we're going to be like, wait a minute, what? This is a righteous man. What? This is a twist in a story here. So we're going to see the plot going on behind the scenes. I'm going to skip down to verse 5. Because it's just talking about his sons and his possessions and everything else. So in verse 5 it says, So it was when the days of feasting had run their course that Job would send in and sanctify them, and he would rise early in the morning and offer burnt offerings according to the number of them all. So in other words, whoever was in the party, he got a burnt offering for each individual. That's what he was doing. For Job said, It may be that my sons have sinned and cursed God in their hearts. Thus Job did regularly. So Job was always concerned about the people and how they thought of God in their hearts. So because of that, he was always concerned, and he would do a sacrifice for them just so that there can be a covering for those people, well, his sons, right? And then verse 6. Now there was a day when the sons of God came to present themselves before the Lord, and Satan also came among them. This is talking about the angels, okay? And the Lord said to Satan, From where do you come? So Satan answered the Lord and said, From going to and fro on the earth, and from walking back and forth on it. See, Satan isn't dumb. He's not like, it's none of your business. He didn't say that. God straight up required of him, Where do you come from? And Satan answered, Well, here and there and everywhere, Then the Lord said to Satan, Have you considered my servant Job? This is the first conspiracy in history where this is conspiracy to me. Where he said, Have you considered my servant Job? Have you put your heart to Job? And then it goes on. That there is none like him on the earth. Now God's bragging. So God's like, have you checked him out? Have you checked him out? There is nobody like him, a blameless and upright man, one who fears God and shuns evil. Why is God doing this? He's kind of like, hey, Satan, check this guy out. You can't trip him up. You can't trip him up. Look at who he is. So Satan answered the Lord and said, Does Job fear God for nothing? Have you not made a hedge around him, around his household, around all that he has on every side? You have blessed the work of his hands, and his possessions have increased in the land. So here he's saying, have you not put a protection around him? Because he has a protective barrier. That's why he was blessed. Nobody can come and touch him, including Satan. Nobody was able to come and touch his possessions. Nobody was able to come and touch Job. Nobody was able to come and touch his family. Everything that belonged to Job was protected. Satan said it right here. Well, of course, he's protected. Of course, he fears God. In other words, he's saying, if you took all that away, he's not going to worship you. He's not going to serve you. He's only serving you because you've given him everything he wants. And that's kind of like, okay, so then what does he continue to say? But now stretch out your hand and touch all that he has, and he will surely curse you to your face. Satan is accusing Job. He only serves you, God, because you put a protection over him. Take that away, he's going to turn on you. He's not going to serve you. He doesn't want nothing to do with you because he only has good. And the Lord said to Satan, behold, all that he has is in your power. Only do not lay a hand on his person. So Satan went out from the presence of the Lord. So God gave him permission. You can do whatever you want with his possessions, but you can't touch Job. And so he gives him permission because now God said, all right, your theory is Job is going to turn on me. Let's test that theory. So God is saying, all right, it's kind of like your kids. You know, somebody says, oh, your kid can't do that. You're like, oh, yeah, watch them. Right? You know, especially when you're confident in that child that they can do that. If you're like, I don't know, you're kind of like, come here, kid. Come here, son. Come here, daughter. Let's ignore them. You know, but if you're confident in your child that they got this, you're going to be like, oh, yeah? Let's see. Ask them. Tell them. And then you encourage the child. Go for it. Do it. Right? Yes, because you're confident. And this is a confidence that God had in Job. But Satan, because you know what? He is the accuser of the brethren. He is always like, yeah, sure, buddy. You know, that ain't going to happen. Verse 13. Now there was a day when his sons and daughters were eating and drinking wine in their oldest brother's house. And a messenger came to Job and said, the oxen were plowing and the donkeys feeding beside them when the Sabines raided them and took them away. Indeed, they have killed the servants with the edge of the sword, and I alone have escaped to tell you. While he was still speaking, and another also came and said, the fire of God fell from heaven and burned up the sheep and the servants and consumed them, and I alone have escaped to tell you. While he was still speaking, another also came and said, the Chaldeans formed 3 bands, raided the camels and took them away, yes, and killed the servants with the edge of the sword, and I alone have escaped to tell you. While he was still speaking, another also came and said, your sons and daughters were eating and drinking wine in their oldest brother's house. And suddenly a great wind came from across the wilderness and struck the 4 corners of the house, and it fell on the young people, and they are dead. And I alone have escaped to tell you. Then Job arose, tore his robe and shaved his head, and he fell to the ground and worshipped. Can you imagine in one single day everything you've earned, your kids that you love, in a matter of all within the same time? Not one finished talking before the other one came, before the other one came, before the other one came, and then the final blow, your kids are dead. All taking that in a matter of seconds. We can barely handle one bad report. We can barely handle that when we're like, oh my God, the world is against me. But this guy, everything he owned and his kids that he loved were gone. And what did Job do? Job rented his clothes, shaved his head. That was a symbol of humbling yourself back in those days. He humbled himself. He fell on the floor and he worshiped God. He gave him the reverence that was due him. He didn't say, God, why? He didn't say what has happened. He didn't get angry. When something threatens our kids, what is our first response? Oh my gosh, if we're not panicking, we get angry that something's happening to our kids. We get upset. It literally can take us out of sorts. To the point where I've known a lot of people where something happens to their kids pass, and they can never get past it, and they can never move forward. But this man, a righteous man, does what we have a hard time doing when we get one bad report. He worshiped God. He knew that God was still there. Do we know God's still there? Do we understand? The world is going crazy right now. Does the world understand? Does the world understand that God allows only what we can handle? He does not give us more than what we can handle. His word says so. Yes, it might feel like we can't handle it. But if God brings you to it, it's because he knows you can. He has that type of confidence in you that you can keep him in his place and get all the way through to the other side. And then he goes on, verse 21. And he said, this was Job's response. The first thing he said, naked I came from my mother's womb, and naked shall I return there. The Lord gave, and the Lord has taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. Blessed be God. God is still good. God is still faithful. I'm still going to rejoice in him. This was Job's first response. How long does it take me to get to that place? You know what I mean? I have to go through my whole little, well, God. I'm trying to make sense of this. And I don't understand. And why? And I have to go through my stage of frustration, of anger, of heartbreak. I have to go through all my stages before I can get to a place of blessed be the name of God. Blessed be the name of the Lord. For I don't deserve nothing. I came in without anything, and I'm going to leave without anything. God is good. God is faithful. This is the kind of heartbeat God is looking for today. This is the kind of righteousness God is looking for in the land today. How many Christians are falling apart right now? How many Christians are saying, Lord, let your will be done. You remain good. You remain faithful. No matter what I'm seeing, no matter what's taking place, no matter what's threatening my life, God, you're still faithful. And then it goes on. In all this, Job did not sin nor charge God with wrong. He still knew that God is just. And whatever God chose to do, in his heart, he knew everything God does is just. And he kept humbling himself before God. And so he goes on in chapter 2, verse 1. Again, there was a day when the sons of God came to present themselves before the Lord, and Satan came also among them to present himself before the Lord. So he's like, here, you know, when the teacher calls roll call, Satan's like, here I am. He's calling roll call. And the Lord said to Satan, from where do you come? So Satan answered the Lord and said, from going to and fro on the earth, and from walking back and forth on it. Then the Lord said to Satan, Have you considered my servant Job, that there is none like him on the earth, a blameless and upright man? This is the second time. This is the second time. But this one where he says, have you considered? He's talking about, did you see? Did you see what happened? The first one is, have you put your heart towards, towards Job? This one is, did you see what he did? Did you see how he came out of that? And then he goes on. A blameless and upright man, one who fears God and shuns evil, and still he holds fast to his integrity, although you incited me against him to destroy him without cause. He is still holding on to his morals. He's still holding on to God's righteous standards. He did not waver when all this came his way. He was being tested. Now, Job didn't realize he was being tested. God didn't say, hey, Job, check this out. I'm going to send Satan. He's going to do all this and all that because I'm testing you. God didn't tell him that. The test comes, like when you go to school and the teacher does a pop test, right? Or whatever those things are called. Pop quiz. They do a pop quiz. You're like, I wasn't ready. I didn't expect that. And it's most likely because we haven't been studying or even learning. So don't do pop quizzes on me. But this was a pop quiz for Job. It was a pop quiz. God didn't warn him. God didn't say, hey, I'm going to test you. It just happened. And then he continued to do what was right before God, in spite of losing everything. I have seen people, and I have asked that question. Man, they're always bragging about the blessings. They're always bragging about this and that. And I always think to myself, will they still serve God the same if God took all that away? Would they still brag about all that they have and all the blessings if it was taken away? Imagine that in one day. With us, God's like merciful, It's just like little by little. We're babies, little by little. Job, boom, one day. And I always wondered, how would they handle it if they didn't have this? Would they still talk the same? Would they still walk the same? Will they still serve God the same? Sadly, a lot of people wouldn't. Sadly, a lot of people will crumble because they think that God is in the blessings. God is in the intimacy. God is in his saving grace. God is into, look, you're filthy, you're dirty. Let me clean you up. Let me show you the way. Let me give you a new life. Something you didn't have before. Those are the things God's into. Changing our hearts, molding us, shaping us, making us people that are after his heart. Making us Christ here on earth. We are his representatives. If we're not representing correctly, then who are we representing? Who are we representing? But this man, he stood doing exactly what he was doing before. And then God told Satan, you incited me to destroy him without cause. It means you wanted me to stir up Job with an intention for him to deviate from his faith without reason. Does Satan need a reason to come and mess with you? No, it's right here. Biblical. That was in the Strongs, by the way. Biblical. He doesn't need a reason. But how do we know that God is not so confident in us where he's saying, hey, have you checked out my servant? Have you checked him out? Go and do this. Go and do that. I'll give you permission. Why? Because I know who they are. See, God allowed this to happen to Job because he knew Job's heart. He knew his servant's heart. He knew him. Does God know you? Can God trust you? Can God do the same with you? Can God give you a pop quiz? Let's see how you're going to handle yourself in this situation. All right, let's put him in that situation. Oh my God, I'm drowning. You know what I mean? Like, God, save me, you know? Or are we like, Lord, blessed be the name of the Lord. Blessed be the name of the Lord. For you are the creator, and I know this. You created me. You made me. You will sustain me. You will help me. Naked I came into the world. Naked I will go out. I'm here for you, God, and I'm not here for me. I'm here to do your will. I'm not here to satisfy me. And when I get that, all of a sudden I get this confidence in God. If God is for me, who can be against me? But when I'm not in that place with God, God, please don't send no pop quizzes, because I will surely fail right now. I will surely fail. So if we're stumbling all over the place, this is a reality check. Job was a man like us. You know, with Christ, we always say, oh, well, we use the excuse, right? He was a man, yes. But in the back of our heads, he was God. Right? So there's a little part of us that's kind of like, yes, okay, I understand he was a man, but he was still God in the flesh. So of course he can handle it. But what about Job? He was a man. Just straight man. What about the disciples? What about the apostles? What about the prophets? What about all them? Okay, that leaves us without excuse. That leaves us without an excuse. And Satan's purpose and intention was to take us, or take Job out. His purpose and intention is, look, take away his comfort. He no longer has faith. He will no longer have faith. Take away his comfort. God took away the comfort. And in anything, his faith got stronger. This is when we know that between a test and a temptation. Because the devil, he comes and tempts. His intention is to get you away from God. When God does something, he tests our heart. That means it's supposed to draw us closer to him. If it's not drawing us closer, then in our relationship with God, you know, we're like in a whole different place. It's supposed to draw us closer. And then he goes on. So Satan answered the Lord and said, skin for skin. Yes, all that a man has, he will give for his life. But stretch out your hand now and touch his bone and his flesh, and he will surely curse you to your face. And the Lord said to Satan, behold, he is in your hand, but spare his life. So Satan went out from the presence of the Lord and struck Job with painful boils from the sole of his foot to the crown of his head. And he took for himself a potsherd with which to scratch himself while he sat in the midst of ashes. Ugh, can you imagine? Like, he's sitting in ashes, okay? Because he's humbling himself before God. So not only did he lose everything, but now he is in pain. Just breathing, I'm sure, causes pain. He has boils all over his body. He has to find something to try to scratch himself with where it's not going to probably bleed or hurt. And this man is sitting there all because God believed in him. And I'm looking at this like, I don't know if I want you to believe in me that much. I'm not sure about this, you know. But it's amazing the way God thinks. His ways are not our ways. His thoughts are higher than our thoughts. And then it goes on in verse 9. Then his wife said to him, do you still hold fast to your integrity? Curse God and die. Are you seriously still trying to keep your relationship with God? Just turn on God and die already. Get out of your misery. Like, that's what she was saying. Like, just, dude, God, if God is doing this, then just curse him. And then he says, but he said to her, you speak as one of the foolish women, as one of the foolish women speaks. Shall we indeed accept good from God, and shall we not accept adversity? And all this Job did not sin with his lips. Shall we only accept what is well-pleasing and convenient from God? That's what that's saying. Shall we also not accept what is disagreeable to us? That's what he's saying. So when they're saying, well, if God is so good, then why this and why that? Why are you getting tested? Why is all these things hitting you? Why is the world going crazy? Shall we only accept what is convenient and well-pleasing to us? Shall we not also accept what is disagreeable? In other words, the only ones that will disagree with it is us. That's the only people. God is not going to do anything to harm us. Everything he does, his intention is to mold us into strong faith people. Like literally our faith is grounded on him, not on the sand. We are building our house on the rock. And if we're doing this, then we're going to understand that things are going to happen. But we have to accept whatever God decides, because he is God and we are not. And if we can understand that we're not God, we don't know what one thing for one person can do for 20, 50, even a nation. You don't know that through your testimony, you are blessing the name of God and reaching many others. See, God doesn't think small. God thinks from beginning to end. And though our life is small when you compare it into all of eternity, he still looks at you personally with intention, with purpose. He looks at your life and he says, look, Job, you have a reputation in the land. Satan is accusing you that you will only serve me if I keep this protection over you. But I'm going to prove to not only Satan, but to the whole world that knew Job, that you will bless me regardless. And then the end result is going to be better than the first. Amen. That's how God works. God doesn't work according to our understanding. This is why we can't fall apart when we don't understand something. We have to have the same heart. Blessed be the name of God. Shall we only accept what is convenient to me? Man, if I only accepted what was convenient to me and said, call that God, I would be pretty happy right now. And whatever came that was disagreeable with me, oh, that's not God. I'm not accepting that. I wouldn't have character today. I wouldn't have character. How would I have the faith that I have if it was not through testing? Right? Everything has to get tested. The cars before they get on the road get tested. The medicines, they have to test it on a rat. You know what I mean? Like everything gets tested. Why do we think we're something different? Like, are we that special? Like, come on. You know what I mean? Jesus Christ got tested. Christ, the Son of God, he got tested. But God knew he was the only one that could, to go all the way to dying on the cross for sins. God knew he was the only one that could do it. And not only the only one, Jesus was the only one willing to do that. Willing. Are we willing to receive whatever God has for us, the good and the bad, what is pleasing and what is. And I find it so amazing that Job still stuck to his guns, because now his wife turned on him. Have your spouse ever turned on you? Ho, ho, ho. Let's not go there. Right. They don't understand. They don't understand what God's doing in you. But all of a sudden, they have an opinion, right? Or we have an opinion. Either way, it goes back and forth. So then it goes on. Verse 11. Oh, no. Then it goes into Job's friends coming, right? All of a sudden, everybody's coming out of the woodworks. They hear what happened to Job, and the friends start coming from other places, other towns, other cities, other, wherever they're coming from. And it's funny because throughout all of Job's testing, they had an opinion. They were trying to use logic for the reason why this was happening to Job. Well, you must have sinned. This is why this is happening. You did this. This happened. It's because of this. It's because of that. You need to do this. You need to do that. You need to get it right. Isn't it true when we're going through something, experiencing something, and it makes no sense? We're literally just trying to do the right thing. All of a sudden, everything goes wrong. And everybody always has an answer to why. A lot of times, they could be wrong if they're just going by logic. Because God told me straight up, I defy all logic. So if you're trying to go by logic, I'm going to defy all that logic, and you're going to miss it. You're going to miss what God is trying to do because you're staying on the flesh side and not stepping into the supernatural. The supernatural is where you get what God's doing. So, God knew the end result of Job's life. God knew what he was going to do. And it's like, we don't know. We don't know what God's doing. We don't know the process. We don't know why all this is happening right now. We really don't. But we're going to see it. We're going to see it. The question is not if God's going to come through. The question is, how are you going to stay standing in the middle of your testings? Are you going to stand like Job? Or are you going to turn on God? Are you going to say, no, God, like, I'm done. I've been there where I'm like, God, that's it. I can't do it. I can't take another step. I'm tired. I'm frustrated. I'm angry. I can't do this. I quit. But my heart couldn't. Like, my heart couldn't. My flesh, everything gave out. But my heart could not stop serving God. My heart kept saying, blessed be the name of the Lord. And that's what kept me going and going all these years. And the amazing part is, if you read on, God was not silent with Job. But the crazy part is, God didn't tell him at any point, look, Job, this is what's going on. As a matter of fact, he rebuked Job. This started off because Job was good and Job was doing right. But then Job starts saying, oh my gosh, cursed is the day that I was born, and he was getting tired and he was going through all the normal stuff. And then God comes to him and corrects him. So he humbles him even more. Have you ever been there? Have you ever been there? You're being dealt with. Things are happening. Everything is going wrong. And God's still rebuking you. And you're like, really? Still rebuking him. But God was not silent with Job. God kept, this was all part of the test. In other words, God was saying, I know. He was kind of like, in other words, he was correcting him like a father. Because have you ever had kids and then, they have big mouths, right? And so, they have big mouths. They think they know something. And you have to just put them in check real quick, right? And to them, it's kind of like, oh, I was just saying something. Yeah, but you forget who you're talking to. You forget you're talking to your mother. You forget you're talking to your father. You're crossing the line. Now you think you're something. You're not coming because of this. You're actually now thinking that you can talk to me that way. And that angers a parent. I mean, when you're a parent, that angers you. You're like, man, if I don't slap you upside the head right now, right? But you correct them. You correct them. And this is God with Job. Job starts talking. And the more he talks, the worse it gets for him, And God straight up rebukes him and tells him, where were you when I created this? Where were you when I created that? Where were you when, this and that? Where were you? In other words, Job, you know nothing, just stay in your place. That's pretty much what God said. You know nothing, stay in your place. And at the end of everything, I'm going to skip to chapter 42. At the end of everything, the end of his heartache and his heartbreak and his pain, his hurt, everything that he went through, God moved on behalf of Job. It's chapter 42, verse 7 and 8. And so it was, after the Lord had spoken these words to Job, that the Lord said to Eliphaz and Temanite, my wrath is aroused against you and your two friends, for you have not spoken of me what is right, as my servant Job has. God came to the defense of Job against his accusers. You have accusers? Let them keep accusing. Because you know what? God's going to step in and he's going to deal with your accusers at the right time. God didn't stop them through the whole process. I mean, look at it. God did not stop them. He let them keep talking. Because he knew what was coming. He's like, yeah, let them keep talking. They're going to eat more dirt. They're going to eat more dirt. The moment that I justified Job. Now therefore take for yourselves 7 bulls and 7 rams. Go to my servant Job and offer up for yourselves a burnt offering, and my servant Job shall pray for you, for I will accept him, lest I deal with you according to your folly, because you have not spoken of me what is right, and I already read that, sorry. And my servant Job has. So, look, God is going to come in at the end of our testing, and he's going to make everything that was wrong right. And those people that are wrong, he's going to correct them. You have to do nothing. Job couldn't move. He was in his ashes. Job couldn't go around, let me just, let me do this, let me do that. He wasn't trying to make himself or prove himself. His character spoke for himself. His character spoke for him. And this is why God said, Job did right by me. You guys spoke out of turn. In other words, you guys could not understand that it was me behind all of it. You guys couldn't understand what I was doing in the background. And you guys spoke accusing Job. That's what Satan did. So you guys accused, and this is why my wrath is against you. You did me wrong by doing my son wrong. That's what he was telling them. You did me wrong. And so here God's saying, I will only accept Job's. So I will accept your offering only if Job blesses it. I mean, that's pretty much a slap in the face for these guys, because here they thought they had the answer for Job. And God straight up just said, no, I'm not going to accept your sacrifice. And then in verse 10, I was like, whoa, where am I at? And the Lord restored Job's losses when he prayed for his friends. See, Job had to humble himself even more in this part. How hard is it to bless somebody that has done you wrong, and that has falsely accused you, and that has spoken wrong against you, and in your hardest times, they came in with some bad news? Like, really? They really weren't there for Job. But God only restored everything after he prayed for them. He had to let it go. He had to let it go. They did me wrong, but I'm going to do them right. This was another part of Job's integrity. Indeed, the Lord gave Job twice as much as he had before. God is the one that can multiply. If you feel like you're losing something, if you feel like you have lost something, God knows how to justify you if it was done in a place of testing. God knows how to give us more than what we had. And we surely have not lost as much